So when an issue comes up, a man may fight, a man may flee, or a man can become defensive. It's what we call defensive responses. Hi friends, I'm Imo, author of these 2 published books. I'm also a life coach and a relationship counselor. Now, in this video, we'll be discussing how hormones influence our behavior. This video is for women, helping them understand, the hormones in men, how testosterone comes to play out, with men, and how, they handle conflicts in the home. And we'll also be sharing some practical tips you can use to understand your man better. So let's discuss how this testosterone in men come to play when it comes to handling conflict, handling issues in the home. Now, if you're a woman, you're not strange to this. Sometimes you're having a conversation with your husband and all of a sudden they just raise their voice and become more assertive. That's not uncommon. That is what is called the fight mode. Sometimes when there is an issue, a man, because of the testosterone drive, confronts the issue head on. And they do that by raising their voice. They become more assertive. They are insisting on their points. In conflicts, they may just interrupt you when you're speaking. They're trying to assert their point. Testosterone fuels a drive to take control and assert dominance. So you are discussing or you are talking to your husband about chores in the house and you hear him say, "I've done my part already," and that's it. As a wife, I'm sure you'd like to know how to address that. That we'll discuss in a minute. When there is conflict in the home or when an issue rise up, a man can fight. A man can also go into what is called the flight mode. That is also called the withdrawal mode. When the situation becomes overwhelming, to prevent an impulsive or regrettable action, a man may just walk away. And when they do that, men usually would do that to process their feelings. Example, during a disagreement, the husband just leaves the room and says, my husband does this a lot. He says, "I can't deal with this right now. I can't talk about this right now." This is most likely the work of testosterone. In high pressured moment, it encourages men to disengage to avoid conflict. So if you see your man do this, women, first of all, know that it's not just your husband thing, it's a man thing. It's the testosterone driving that in them, and we'll discuss practical tips to handle this in a second. So when an issue comes up, a man may fight, a man may flee, or a man can become defensive. It's what we call defensive responses. For example, you're criticizing your husband's way of disciplining the kids, and he says things like, "I know how to handle my own kids." I've had my husband tell me that all the time. I'm just trying to say, why don't you? He's like, "I know how to handle my kids. Don't teach me how to handle my kids." Men may interpret criticism as a personal attack, and because of that, they try to defend themselves strongly. And the role of testosterone is that sometimes for men, testosterone, it enhances a protective stance, guiding their sense of competence. And so that's why, they take criticism personally. Men do that. So when an issue comes up, a man may fight, a man may flee, a man may defend himself, or a man may engage in something called physical reactions. And I'm sure some women may have seen this. I saw this in my husband, when we first got married. He doesn't really do that a lot. You just see them, they just have this rigid posture. Some of them are pacing around. Some of them, they have this tight, clenched fist. And so that's most likely testosterone at play there. Also, when an issue arises, a man may enter into what is called a fix-it mode. He enters into this problem-solving mode when he tries to fix the issue immediately rather than discussing feelings. Practical tips for wives, for women on handling conflict in the home, especially when you're dealing with men. We've discussed their testosterone. Trust me, learning all this will save you a lot of headache. Now, when a man is in the fight mode, when he's trying to confront an issue head on, women, it will be best, or it's best for us. Over the years, I've learned that it's best for us to stay calm and avoid raising our voice in response, because matching a man's voice during that fight mode just may likely escalate the situation. So pause and suggest continuing the discussion later if emotions are running too high. And I do that when I see that my husband is all worked up. I just say, okay, I don't think we're able to discuss this right now. I think we should take a break and we'll come back to it. And I found out that usually works, because on days, or usually when we first started, I'm trying to get my way as it's getting his way, and engage in argument that does not even make sense. But if it's in the fight mode, it takes two people to fight. If you're not there to fight, it's not going to fight you. Just take some kind of explain to him why you're about to leave, because some men also may perceive you working away, as you being rude to them. My husband had told me that, like, you're walking out of our conversation, and I told him, no, I'm not walking out of our conversation. I'm walking out on a fight. We don't want to engage in this right now. And he's come to understand it. So let your husband know what you're trying to do. Hey, I understand that you're all worked up about this. Why don't you let's revisit this in a while? And trust me, doing that would save you a lot of headache, save you arguments. So when they're in the fight mode, we are not engaging with them. We are maintaining our calm. We're cool. We let them just, do their thing, maybe say something they do not mean and, get upset. But we give them time to just calm down. We are not engaging in that fight nature with them. Also, when they are in their flight mode, I found out that what works is to give them space to process their feelings. Women, sometimes when a man wants to flee from a situation, I used to follow my husband and I'm like, come here, we are going to have this discussion now. We are going to, discuss this now. No, that doesn't work. When a man wants to flee a situation, it's okay. Just give him the space to do that. Let him process his feelings. Let him know that you're open to revisiting the issue when it's ready. You can say things like, hey, I'll give you time to think. Let's talk when you're ready. And I assure you that would go a long way in your marriage, reducing or avoiding unnecessary escalation that can come from women stopping men from fleeing, an unpleasant situation. And from what we have discussed earlier, we have said that men also can respond defensively, when they are confronting an issue. So instead of us, engaging in that defensiveness or trying to be more critical, we can change our own tone. Instead of saying things like, hey, I feel like you're too harsh on the kids, we can try and say things like, hey, I'd like us to find a way to handle discipline together that feels right to both of us. I've realized that for a man, the best way to get through to them is not by criticizing them. It's not by confronting them. It's not by, raising our voices at them. I've tried that in the past. It's never worked. And now that I don't practice that much, I realize that I'm actually enjoying a lot of peace. And my husband wants to hear me out because he knows that I am naturally not trying to criticize him. When I come as an ally. I come as a friend. I tell him I come in peace. I'm not trying to stress you. And he's ready to listen to me because he knows I'm not here to nag him. I'm not there to complain to him. Well, I try not to, for the most part. So I want to encourage us that whenever we approach our husbands, we should go in peace. Let him know that you're a friend. Let him know that you are not his enemy. Because if he senses that you are his enemy, he wants to fight you. He wants to defend himself. He wants to protect himself. So come in peace. And one of the things I've also found out, that's helped us in my marriage to de-escalate situations quickly, or to address situations, is whenever I want to discuss something, especially something that I know that may be a little bit maybe not so pleasant, or a little bit touchy. You have issues like that in marriage. Sometimes you have touchy issues. What I do is I start by appreciating my husband. Genuinely, I start by appreciating him for the things that he's done. And I tell him, hey, I want to appreciate you for this that you do, and that you do, and this that you do. And somebody that is already ready to fight, you see him just calming down a little bit. Just calming down. Is calm, is not as worked up, is not as prepared for a fight. And I'm like, okay, so thank you for everything. And I sing his praise, genuinely appreciate him, and then I go on to constructively relay my matter and tell him, hey, these are the kind of things I want to talk about. I want you to know that I am not trying to offend you. I want you to know that I am not trying to upset you. I just want us to talk about this talk about it amicably. This kind of reminds me of 1 Samuel 25. The Bible had talked about Nabal and Abigail. Nabal was a fool according to the Bible, and Abigail was intelligent. What had happened was Nabal had insulted David. David then was very powerful, and David was nice, had always been nice to Nabal, had always protected Nabal's sheep, and always done great things for Nabal. But Nabal was very disrespectful to David, and David was upset. Remember, the fight mode we talked about, it kicked in, and David was ready to confront Nabal with violence. He was ready to kill him. But you know what Abigail did? Abigail acknowledged David's frustration, and she justified his anger towards Nabal. She directed his focus to a better situation. She says, hey, I see you upset and I feel the same way in your shoes. And she told him, hey, you don't want to have blood on your hand. I understand that my husband is a fool, but don't, she was able, she spoke to him. She spoke to the man in him. And with everything she did, the way she went about it, David calmed down, and David did not hurt her family just because of what an intelligent woman did. Abigail's words were thoughtful and gentle. It aimed at soothing David's anger rather than provoking him further. She was calm in her approach. She went to David calmly. She offered solutions, not criticism. She focused on resolving the conflict instead of blaming or criticizing. Ephesians 5 also reminds women to honor, to regard, to respect their husbands. And what would happen in relationship is that many times we think it's the big things in marriage that causes, this conflict, but it's not always so. That's something I've come to realize. Many times it's the little things. It's like, the little things like trying to understand one another, the little things like, trying to compromise, trying to meet each other halfway, understanding how our brains work. And that's exactly what we discussed in this video. These are the things that would help your marriage. Understanding how a man's brain works, understanding how a woman's brain works. I discussed how brain wiring, brain structuring affects men and women, and how they process that in the relationship. Please do make sure you look it up. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have not subscribed, please do so. It really helps us grow. And also, please leave us a comment below. What have you picked from this video? What would you like to share with us? Would like to learn from you as well. Let's get the conversation going. Until next time when I come your way again, my name is Imo. Bye-bye.